Hi, everyone. Welcome to Turning Point. I'm your host, Blaine Birch, and I'm really excited to have joining me today Dena Patton. Dena is a business coach. She's an author. She's also an entrepreneur, a longtime entrepreneur, and has coached businesses from like the 1 to 100 million. Really well established businesses for a long time. And so we're really excited to have you on the show, Dena.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What we like to do on the show is we always love to get right back to the roots. How did you start out as an entrepreneur? When did you get interested in it? What was your first experience?
Oh gosh, I think I was an entrepreneur since age 5. I was interested in running my own show, making my own money. I loved the idea of that. And all of my jobs up until I started my business were very freedom based. I love the
Yeah.
freedom of it. And I love jobs that you have control over how much money you make versus getting a job for $20 an hour or $13 an hour when you're 16. So
Yeah.
I think I always had that in my mindset. But at 21, had a huge dream to move from Phoenix, Arizona to New York City and
Yeah.
sold everything I had and hopped on a plane and moved to New York City. And really, that's where I was got really bit by the bug because back then entrepreneurship was so hot and it was really, I think, the first time that entrepreneurs started to really gather. Um,
Yeah.
and that's where I started my own PR and marketing agency in New York City in 1996 with a dream in the hot summer of New York, and the rest is history.
Well, and that's quite the place to start. Like you're diving in, not starting small, going straight to New York. So
Yes.
I commend you for that. In 1996, that was the year I graduated university of my undergrad. So just sort of diving into, I guess, my journey around the same time. So tell me a little bit about like I'd like to get into a little bit of the process of
Mhm.
how you actually did like pick up a move and start something in a brand new city. How did you get your first client?
Yeah. So, I think that starting is one of the hardest things that we can do, whether it's starting a diet or starting to get out of debt or starting a business.
Yeah.
That start is a mindset. And part of it is jumping, just that trust and I'm going to figure it out. But perfection is going to paralyze us. If you have to have all your ducks in a row and everything perfect before you start, you'll never start.
Mhm.
So I think part of my mindset is jump and figure it out
Yeah.
and surround yourself with smart people that go before you, right? So I was in New York City for a year and a half before in the entertainment industry before I started my own business. So I did have some good contacts. Of course, contacts and your network are really important when you're starting a business. And I was doing PR and marketing for a company and making them a lot of money. And I thought, I can do this on my own. Why am I making
Yeah.
them money? And I have the contacts. I know how to do this and really jumped and I just spread the word. I'm going to age myself. This is before the internet, so you can't just throw out Facebook or LinkedIn notice, hey, I've opened my own business. It's all about relationships. And I think
Hmm.
even in these times of technology, relationships are really, really important. And that's what got me my first client. The word spread. And in fact, one of the hardest challenges I had in my business is I said yes to everybody. And I think
Yeah.
I think we all learn that lesson is
Yeah.
we want the next client, we want to make money, we want to make payroll. And so you say yes, you say yes, you say yes, and you don't have a lot of discernment around who you're saying yes to. And then you
Yeah.
get over capacity, and then the problems start, right? So it was 3 years of learning and growing and understanding. I had a PR and marketing firm, so I understood marketing, but doing marketing for your own company, it's a learning curve for everybody, and
Yeah.
getting those clients in and sustaining them. But it was a awesome ride up for 3 years, and then at 27, it all came crashing down in the form of a minor stroke. And
Oh, I know.
I really, got the taste of being on death's door and just really understanding that you have to have self care. I call it CEO self care now.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what that even meant back there. Boundaries, structures, systems to support me, delegation, just breathing room. As a
Yeah.
leader in a business, it's really important to have self care. So I just didn't know those things. You know better, do better, and it was a year of recovery and learning how to speak again. And just like everybody, we all have those moments that put us on our knees, and you either get better from it or you get bitter from it. And
Yeah.
I decided to get better from it, and I learned and picked myself up again.
It's yeah, oh man, we talk with entrepreneurs like all day, every day, and I've done, I don't know what episode we're on here, close to 50 here, and it's such a familiar story. And I was the exact same way when I started my business. I did too many things. I was on every local board, and I was a business, and I was teaching, and I was doing all this kind of stuff all at the same time. And we also took on, just like you, like, hey, if you walk in the door and have a face and a dollar, we're going to do some work for you. And you're
Yes.
just always living on that top line, and then you have to grow to support it. A lot of times not profitable, and you learn the hard way. And it's so much, I hear that so often from entrepreneurs, that you learn that the hard way, that first off, you have to find those perfect clients, those good clients that are highly profitable, that can help your business excel and grow.
Hmm.
But then also, you can't, like, I've told people before, you always hear, having a business is a marathon. I'm like, it's not a marathon. It's like you're walking around the world. Like, it's 1,000 times a marathon.
Yes.
You can't sprint. You can't
Yes.
sprint indefinitely. You have to be able to slow down. And it took me a lot of years to figure that out. And I know I was talking with Guy Bauer, one of our customers, I think it was yesterday, and we were talking about how important it is to sort of wind down and take that time, and how many sort of business problems I find are solved in the back of my mind when I'm actually relaxed and away from the
Yes.
office, right?
Yes. And it goes back to that CEO self care, and that word's really thrown around loosely, but I have a saying that your CEO self care plan is just important as your business plan and your marketing plan,
Yeah.
because brilliance comes in our self care plan. When you have margins in your life and you have downtime and you have what I call activation time, part of self care is not just unplugging and getting enough sleep and moving your body and eating well and getting a massage, like all those things that relax us. We have to come down. But
Hmm.
part of CEO care is activation, is as CEOs, as leaders,
Yeah.
as leaders and business owners, our businesses count on our creativity and our innovation, right?
Yeah.
And our great ideas. You cannot think of a great idea when you're going 150 miles per hour and you're about to
No.
hit the tree, right? So it's really important that you bake in time that activates you. So that might be golfing, that might be comedy, that might be live music, that might be getting out in nature, whatever those things are that just fuel. It's about fueling, which is very
Yeah.
distinct from relaxing, right? But the fuelings, it really help us, that activation of inspiration and innovation. And so when I work with my clients, one of the requirements of helping them build their business is they have to go on to a CEO self-care plan,
Yeah.
because I see some really horrible things as entrepreneurs. We can ruin our marriage over our businesses. We can
Hmm.
get separated from our children, and just that disconnection, because you're working 12 or 15 hours a day and you don't have time to be a great dad, right? Or a
Yeah.
great mom because you're so burning the candle, right? So it's just really important that as you build your business and you're scaling and you're putting all these systems in place and team in place, you take care of your mind, body, and spirit. So important.
Yeah. And I swear that the some of the most sort of the biggest connections, I'll say, because all the information is usually there, right? But you're, like you said, you're running 90 miles a minute. It's like I always say it's like my mind is like a chainsaw. You know, it's like even
Yeah.
when I go to bed at night, it's like dark. Boom, this is going, going, going.
It just
You have
keeps
to
going.
calm that down. And but a lot of times it feels like the connections are made and these innovative ideas, and but it's a lot of times it's like, oh, that's where we go because I add one and one and one together. Now we're
Hmm.
good. I can tell you it's happened to me regularly when I'm on a bike. I don't know why,
Mm.
but that's when I, out exercise, but I'm not thinking, and it's in the I think it's in my subconscious, and for
Yes.
some reason all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, got it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's unbelievable and it's repeatable. It's just,
Yes.
I have to keep discipline to just make sure that I get out on a bike a lot
That's
because it,
right.
it helps me, right?
Yeah. And that's your activation. And when you know that, it becomes your formula for greatness, and your formula for innovation is find your thing or two that activates you. And that is exactly what's happening is the subconscious gets to now move forward, because when we're going a million miles an hour, it's just in the back, in the back, in the back.
Hmm.
But when we are just in nature or doing our activity, right, walking your dog or hiking, whatever your thing is, what's happening is that subconscious is coming forward and it's starting to connect dots that
Hmm.
you don't see in the conscious mind because we're just too busy. We have our
Yeah.
to-do list running, and so it's important, especially right now. Entrepreneurship it's just in a huge boom, and I think it's important to stay innovative as we see all these businesses going out of business, small and
Hmm.
large. And it's really easy just to grind away, right? Just put
Yeah.
out the fires and put out the problems and get the next client. But it's really important to edge into your day or into your week that time for innovation. Where is your business standing out, and where is your innovation coming from? Because your competitors are, we all have competitors. um, but it's not necessarily about competitors, but about being your best self.
Yeah.
What is your brand um, uh, doing right now? Is it in greatness and innovation, and you're playing that game, or are you just in survival? It's two
Yeah.
different games.
Yeah. And I find like even for us, it's amazing how like there's a lot of competitors out there, but it starts to feel like we get down to the point where it feels like we have almost no competitors when we're doing it right. And we're doing it
Mhm.
right when we know this is what we're super good at, and
Yes.
this is who we help the most, and this is how we help them, and this is what and the benefits we offer and everything. This is how we work with our customers. And it becomes really a unique offering,
Mhm.
and lots of competition out there, except when we're doing it right, it doesn't feel like it
Yes.
because we're just this is who we help. And we love a lot of our competitors. I mean, like, yeah, and that's who they help. And we actually pass people back and forth at
Mhm.
times because it's we're trying to help slightly different people a lot of times,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I think that's important to always be conscious of the competition, but don't dwell on it. It's important
Mhm.
to it's more important to say let's do what we do best, do it right, and focus on what we do right.
And what you're pointing to is such an important piece. One of the three things that I really help clients with is sales systems. And part of my process, I have a 7-part process to help them in that. My very first piece of that process is what you're talking about, is the brand. Like,
Hmm.
when I say branding, it's all about who are you? What do you stand for? Who are you? Who do you serve? That clarity moves the train. Confusion
Hmm.
derails the train, right? So
Yeah.
when we're confused about who we are, what our uniqueness is, what our brilliance is, who we serve, if we don't know that, and your employees don't know that, and your marketing's not saying that, you're probably lost in Vagueville.
Yeah.
Just it's very confusing, not only to you, but it's confusing to the consumer. When we
Yeah.
make it really clear for the consumer to buy from us, they're like, oh, he solves our problem, because it's
Hmm.
just so clear. I want to work with him, right? That
Yeah.
clarity so helps people choose. And that branding, I don't think a lot of people stop because branding isn't necessary. I mean, they just jump right over it and open shop, right? But
Mhm.
I think it is necessary. If you're really going to create a sustainable business, you've got to step one, vision, values, purpose, and then the branding piece of who you are, what you stand for, and who do you serve. Those are
Mhm.
big questions. It does take work to answer those, but I think that's what you're pointing to is it makes you confident and clear in who you are and what you're
Yeah.
selling. And I always say serve and solve, right? That is what we all do. We
Mhm.
serve the people we're meant to serve and we solve their problems. And if you don't know that, it just makes it hard. And you're probably spending a lot of money on marketing. Your sales system is probably all over the place because you don't know those
Yeah.
answers will help you streamline your business, your branding, your marketing, your sales, and you can quadruple your income just by knowing those answers. So
Yeah.
super important as we, again, those are the lessons that you learn, not necessarily year one or two. As we grow
Yeah.
our businesses, we're like, oh, I'm doing all this marketing and it's attracting the wrong people. I've gotten that so many times, clients
Yeah.
coming and saying, I'm getting a ton of people through my door, just 80% of them are the wrong people.
Yeah.
How do I fix that? And
Yeah.
sure enough, they stepped over that step one. We have to rewind and do that. So it's really important if you want to save money on marketing and save time, do that hard work and really understand who you serve and what you solve, and then make sure that that's clear in your marketing. And
Yeah.
now 100% of people that come through your door are going to be your people.
Yeah, and it's a hard lesson to learn early on. It's we want everybody coming through our door, and then you realize it's a waste of time because
Well, thank
it's a
you.
waste of everybody's time.
Yes.
And the when we've gone off track, usually what we've done is we've tried to sort of serve too many people, and usually what gets us right back onto track is talking with our customers, talking with our successful customers, not the one that said, "Oh, do you have this or that?" No, it's the ones that are just killing it,
Yeah.
talking with them and learning more and more like what do we do that just is the game changer for them, and how do they speak about it and using their language. And that's the other thing we corporate up sometimes their language, and we literally have like a giant, we call it the Bible, right? Like it's here's what our customers said exactly, not
Mhm.
paraphrasing. This is what they said. This we've highlighted the key words because we want to use that language to attract again more of the same.
Yes.
So we want to use the same language and everything. And that's how we help build our brand was we when we try and do it too internally, that's where we get stuck. We when we're
Mhm.
talking with our customers and we're helping make that connection, that's where we're going, oh, this is how we communicate this with them, and this is the real problems that we're solving for them, how they see it, right?
Yeah. And what I heard in that is a distinction in when I'm working with clients, we all pretty much know what we're selling. I'm selling business coaching, right, in three areas. But you're selling, house building. You're selling mechanic work. Whatever you're selling. You're selling SaaS product. Um, so we know the tangible, but do you know your intangible? And I think that's what you're talking about when you start to listen to your customers, and especially if you're capturing testimonials, which I highly recommend have a system for,
Mm-hmm.
what you start to see is a pattern in the customer's language of how they talk about you. And what is really, really important is that you see the pattern in the intangibles. So the tangibles, if you fix cars and they say, oh, John is so amazing. He fixes my car so quickly every time. They're talking about your tangible, like you fixing the car. But
Mm-hmm.
usually in a testimonial, there's always a word or two more. Like he's always so kind, or he's so Educational. He really talks to me about my car so I better understand how it operates, right? Or something like that, right? That
Hmm.
is an intangible. When you see 5 or 10 or 20 clients talking about how educational you are or how empowering you are or how kind you are, those are intangibles that are a pattern. So when you have
Hmm.
10 clients saying how kind you are or how empowering you are, that is important because that is part of your secret sauce. But if
Yeah.
you don't know it, you can't put it into your branding and marketing. And those words attract. Those really, really, really attract, right?
Hmm.
So although I sell business coaching, if you read 20 of my testimonials, they're also going to touch on how amazing it is to have like high level partnerships, right? Because it's lonely at the top. When you're a CEO, you can't use your team for a
Yeah.
lot of conversations and ideas and ups and downs, right? Like
Yeah.
it's lonely at the top. So, a lot of my clients will talk about my tangibles, but they'll say something like, "Oh my gosh, it was so amazing having a high level partner through the last year," right? Or
Hmm.
how encouraging Dina is. Well, once I started seeing these words show up in almost every testimonial, I'm like, "Ooh, secret sauce. I'm putting that in my branding," right? And so I
Yeah.
just encourage everybody. It's not, what you offer. Your tangible is where we compete, right? If you're a credit card company, if you're a mechanic, we all have tons of tangible competitors, but where you
Yeah.
don't compete is your secret sauce, those intangibles. So make sure you know those words. They're usually 2 or 3 words that just are in the pattern of what your clients say. Capture those and put them on your website, put them in your marketing, because those are those intangible secret sauce that make you you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. Like
It
I
is
want to
hard.
say to people, it's hard. We're just always working so hard on this, and it feels like everything always looks so easy. And hindsight is 2020. But when you look back, you go, oh, it's so obvious now. But it's so hard while you're doing it,
Yes.
because everything kind of makes sense until you start to, like I said, have a system where you pull out. Oh, this is you see those repeating things and those patterns, and like you use your gut. And I remember reading one time where they said using your gut is just pattern recognition. And once I read that, I started to trust my gut more because I'm like,
Mm,
yeah, that actually makes sense, right? You're
mhm,
seeing this, you're like, this something about this, something about this.
mhm.
You're actually your subconscious is, figuring it out.
Yes.
One of the things I wanted to dive into a little bit because it's sort of come up in all of these areas, and you brought it up right at the start, was the importance of relationships. And that I know is like, I had a creative agency for over a decade. We got all our customers out of, we called it networking, but it was all relationship building and
Yes.
referrals and repeat business. And that's just how we did it. I think sometimes people are like over the last few years, as we've turned into like a Zoom world, have started to think that can be replaced, but I don't think it can. I think relationships are absolutely paramount, and you have to put more work into it now to make it work. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. It's easily replaceable in some people's minds, but people who really value relationships, it'll never be replaceable. And I find some people are very transactional. They tend to be attracted to transactional businesses, right? So like I do a deal and we're done. We do a deal
Yeah.
and we're done, right? They're just very about the transaction. But what I have found is relationships through any recession, COVID, anything that's going to happen. Now, I look at 26 years of being an entrepreneur. I was in New York City at 9/11. Obviously, the crash of '08, the recession, COVID. My businesses have been sustainable and thriving through all of those. And there's a reason because I value relationships. And I value really serving and solving people and coming from a service heart. And I just got a referral from a dear friend of mine, like I said, I spent almost 10 years in New York City in my 20s. And, that was a long time ago. And I'm still getting referrals from dear friends that I made back then, over
Yep.
25 years ago. And we support each other and we love each other's businesses. And I think it's important to value relationships. They are not replaceable. Zoom's not
Yep.
going to do it. And so I believe in two types of relationships when you're a business owner is your peers, right? Like your industry, whatever you're in.
Hmm.
If you're a realtor, you should probably be in realtor associations, right? And so big and small. There's local ones, there's national ones, right? If you're a coach, be in coaching associations, again, small and big. So you're in with your peers, your colleagues, you're learning best practices. Every single industry has an association or a group or even a meetup, right? So I would say never stop learning from those people, right?
Yep.
So there's that. And then there's relationships with your potential clients. I'm always networking, I'm building relationships, I'm out in the community with
Yep.
my potential customers and sitting on boards and doing, community things. And so I think it's really important both sides of always learning with your peers and networking. As a coach, I only coach in three areas: systems, leadership, and sales. And there's a lot of other areas of small business, obviously. And so I have a ton of people I refer to, right? If someone
Hmm.
needs a, finance, like they're raising money in their business, I have a couple of people to refer them to. If they need HR consulting, I have HR coaches and consultants, right? So there's a lot of us that refer each other to our specialty, just like doctors do, right?
Yep.
They are in their specialty. And so I think it's important that creating a referral network, um, networking and building relationships with your peers, so you're always iron sharpens iron and you're getting better and better. And then of
Yep.
course with your customers and being out in your community, out in the world, podcasting. One of the reasons I love podcasting is it connects me to people all over the world that I could, I speak on a lot of stages, but that's 100 people in the room or maybe 1,000
Yep.
people in the room.
Yep.
Podcasts have a much bigger reach, right? So it's a wonderful way to start a relationship, and they reach out and we start a relationship. So I just can't say enough about building relationships. And I think a lot of people, what you're saying in your mind, I don't have time for that. I don't have time. Don't
Yep.
you understand? I'm working 50 hours a week or 70 hours a week. It's an important piece, even if you just start with 1 hour a week. Just
Yep.
schedule, and that goes to anything. You need more self care in your life. It starts with success is scheduled. So you want to put the things that matter in your life, in your business, on your schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. If I know what it's like. If it's not on a calendar, it ain't happening. Like if
It's
it's
not
not in the calendar,
happening.
it's just not happening. And it's just, I, like I try and schedule. A friend of mine actually does this. He basically schedules in all of his vacation numerous times a year, but he'll do it like years in advance. Like he's like, "Yep, this is what it is," and he just has it in. I suppose he moves it around if he decides to change something, but it's in there. And because I know, like I every if I forget, suddenly my calendar's booked up, and I'm like, it's
Yes.
it's never gonna end.
Okay, so I
I'll
want to
never
talk
go.
about that really quick because I have a hack for everyone, and it's something I do with all my clients in January. I've been doing it for about 6 years. It's what you touched on, but there's a little formula. I have formulas for most everything. You
Yep.
get out your year in, I like to do it in January, but you can do it right now. You get out a calendar for the next year and you do your calendar in layers. Layer one is all the vacations. So 3-day vacations, spring breaks, you get your children's time off, and you work around them, right? So spring break, fall break, Christmas break, summer break. So you put any vacations or time off, 3-day weekends and self-care, mental health days, on the calendar. That's layer one. Layer two is philanthropy and ministry. So if you're involved with your church or involved with a favorite charity, it might only be, a couple times a year. But again, it's success is scheduled. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to schedule right over that. And then you can't volunteer at that camp or that, mission trip that you wanted to go on or that favorite charity event because you have a client, right? So
Yeah.
that's layer two. We put things that move our hearts in layer two. And then layer three is our businesses events. So
Mm.
conferences, training days, this isn't a to-do list. It's just, booked events, meetings. Maybe you do a 2-day training with your team, twice a year, those kind of things, high level events, meetings, then go in that. And then if you are an event that hosts your own events, like I host a lot of events in my brand, that's layer four. But I
Mm.
can do that confidently. I can put in retreats and classes and things that I'm going to host in my brand confidently because those three things came first and
Yeah.
they're in the calendar. And then I can put my brand's events. So that's just a hack, 4 layers of your calendar that really help you um, win, not just at work, because we're not just an entrepreneur. We're moms, we're dads, we're married, we're single, we are involved with philanthropy. Whatever is important in your life needs to be scheduled. So that's just like life changing when you treat your calendar like that because all
Yeah.
4 layers of your life then wins.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. I'm going to use that hack because I do little tidbits here and there, but half the time stuff surprises me, and
Yep,
that's a really good way to do it because if I'm sure you're probably like me, like I've got Calendly scheduling links that have been sent out that people have, and I forget people have it, and they just stuff my calendar just fills up, right? It
that's
just
right.
disappears on me. So you need that time, and even in my calendar, I try and schedule in a weekly time where this is a block for me to kind of do work. Like here's a block where I'm going to do
That's
some
right.
education, research stuff, whatever. Sometimes I have to, tweak it, but at least it's blocked off so that I've got that in there. Um, it's there's almost nothing more important than standing meetings, even if it's just for myself to do something,
That's right.
or whatever. Because otherwise, they'll just disappear and always fall second and third and fourth, right?
Yes, absolutely. Time management, I think, we're always learning as entrepreneurs. You know better, you do better. You know better, you do better. It's almost like every day you're learning so many lessons, and it never goes away. Even my big clients who are doing 50 million, 80 million, 100 million, you know, they're just bigger lessons at that level,
Yeah,
and things are more at stake. But there's lessons every single day, and I think the bigger your business gets, obviously the busier you get, and to really master your time management and time blocking is so important on a daily and weekly basis because a month can go by, a year can go by, and you're still not getting to the things that matter and you
yeah,
feel run down. It's because you haven't mastered your calendar. And like you said, especially when people have access to your calendar, it can fill up and you're like, whoa, wait, I
yeah.
needed 4 more hours this week and now it's all filled up. So it's just one of those things that you really need to learn, and the better you get, the more freedom you'll have and more power you'll have around your time.
Yeah, and it's like that we've talked a fair bit about just this idea of balance and how important it is because this is a hard, being an entrepreneur. It's a hard journey. It isn't a 9 to 5. It's you try and do my best to keep somewhat regular hours and but the brain never shuts off, right? It's
Right.
hard to get away from that, and it's amazing how some of these like systems and processes can help take what feels like a sprinting with your pants on fire sometimes, right? To something that's just it feels more under control and
Right.
feels regular and feels like I can do this for the long term. I can excel at this.
hmm Yeah. And I think the key word there is systems and process. And again, we just learn. When in my first business, I was very lucky to blessed to have sold that business, and didn't have a ton of revenue. There was only I only had it for 3 years, but what I had was systems, and I've always been a systems person, and I had no idea it was such a sellable skill until
Mm-hmm.
I got to sell that business, and then was hired on to consult them and help them build their systems of this new internet company, and now it's a global success and did very very well, and it was all based on systems,
Yeah.
admin systems, calendar systems, marketing systems, sales systems. I am a stickler for sales systems. If you don't have a
Yeah.
well-oiled sales system, you probably are working 10 times harder than you need to. And
Yeah.
so systems become the muscle memory of your business. When you look at your life at home, you probably have a morning routine, you have an evening routine. If you have kids, there's like a homework, dinner routine, like there's process, right? And in your home that helps
Mm-hmm.
the home run, right? Otherwise, it would just be complete chaos. Well, in our business, we got anything that's repeatable, anything that you or your employees are doing that they do on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, that it needs a system. And so one of my favorite sayings is, where there is chaos, there is no systems. So if you look at your
Mm-hmm.
business and you write down the 10 areas where you have like chaos or breakdowns, it's probably because there's not a system there. And that's what points you to, like, oh, we need a system for that. And that is, again, back to entrepreneur learning. These are systems aren't really sexy. Um,
Yeah.
I sell them all day long. They're needed, but they're not sexy,
Yeah.
right? And they're just, you come to the end of yourself. You're like, why is this so hard and heavy? It's because there's not enough systems going on, especially in
Right.
the sales piece. I don't see a lot of really well done sales systems. And even if you're $100,000 entrepreneur, you need a sales system.
Mm-hmm.
Everything works better when it's well-oiled machine that's working together. So
Yeah.
a lot of people just have pieces of the engine that are all there. You have the pieces, but they're just not working together, and
Yeah.
that's makes a difference. And again, back to the heaviness. You just don't want to be exhausted and heavy all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's no
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, and we see that like every day. We see that all the time because what we, of course, we're cash flow forecasting, but a big part we always say if you're short on cash flow today, you probably have a broken sales system from
That's
6 months ago. So
that's
with dry
causing that
run,
today, right? Yeah.
exactly. So with
Yeah.
dry run, it's like here's your near term cash flow, but here's your longer term sales pipeline. Here's how much it costs to stay in business. That's kind
Mhm.
of three things you kind of need to know, right?
Yes.
And we're always like we have all these systems to make sure that and this is what we basically teach and talk to our customers about is this stuff has to be plugged in, has to work together.
Right.
Then you're onto something. Then it's all connected. Then otherwise you're wasting hours and hours and days of your time and just not being effective.
Yeah. And I love that you use the word effective because it's one of my favorite words. Is I think when I started, I look back at the 25, 26-year-old me starting this business, and, the excitement and the adrenaline of it. I think that's what, makes me jump, is the excitement of something new, right?
Yeah.
But, fast forward a year or two, I think if I could go back and give myself advice, it would be having an eye, a leadership eye for effectiveness. And I wish I grew that skill younger. I have it now. I probably mastered it in the last 10 years. But, those first 10, 15 years if I just had a better eye around effectiveness and the courage. It takes courage to have an eye for effectiveness. You have to,
Hmm.
you have to look at your team. Is she effective? Is he effective? Is this system effective? Is our marketing effective? Looking at analytics and going, is what we are doing effective?
Hmm.
And that takes courage. I think it's really easy just to keep going and just keep the engine moving and not look at those and like hope. You just hope
Yeah.
everything's going okay. But I think, and it's kind of a young entrepreneur thing that you have to build your courage to do those kind of things.
Hmm.
When you're more experienced, that becomes the game.
Yeah.
Effectiveness. You want team members effective. You want your hiring process to be effective, sales to be effective, marketing to be effective, customer service.
Yeah.
Talk about something that I think is this lost conversation is I just was working with a client yesterday and we're working on their customer service system, and customers for them are with them for 2 years. That's a long time taking care of someone, right?
Hmm.
And you better have a really clear system of how you're going to do that. So
Yeah.
it's great for them. The experience is great for the customer. And a lot of people just don't pay enough attention to customer service these days. They're just, again, trying to get the next buck or the next trend or stay on social media, like all these things that, back to effectiveness, might not be even effective. Like, I don't play a huge social media game. It is not where I get my clients. Am I on social media? Yes. Do I spend tons of time and money on it? No. You know why?
Yeah.
I it is proven it is not where I get my clients from. I want to have a
Yeah.
presence on it, right? That's different than I'm going to spend $3,000 to $5,000, 10,000, 200,000 on this game of social media, right?
Yeah.
So we have to pay attention to what is effective. I love there's a tool, Busy Numbers, BIZI numbers.com, and it's a dashboard that you it's a membership, and it's a dashboard where you know your numbers, your
Hmm.
financial, your sales numbers, and you understand your numbers. And that is a place where I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs are effective. They don't know their numbers. They don't know what's effective, right? So my one of my biggest, points in this conversation is have the courage. It's a greatness game. Have the courage to look at all the different points of your business and evaluate if it's effective or ineffective. And if it's ineffective, be willing to do the work to transform it and help it be effective.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's margins are too tight. And just being in business is too tight. You have to do that. You have to keep working towards improving your business, improving it from the top to bottom, because half the businesses are gone in their first 5 years,
Yeah.
and most of them are profitable on paper. They're broken in other ways, right? So,
Yes.
absolutely agree that you can't shirk that duty if you're the business owner, the CEO. Whether it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
whether you're busy, you just have to dig in and do it. So I love that word, using courage
Yeah.
to dive in and do
It
that.
does take courage, and a lot of the leadership that we have to have in a successful business. It's one thing to get to your success, to your goal, but to sustain it over and over, year after year, through ups and downs, takes courage, and it takes
Mhm.
bold decisions, and it takes great, what I call greatness mindset. That mindset that you can do this. You can,
Mhm.
if you're in a dark place in your business, and maybe, all kinds of wild things happen in entrepreneurship, right? But we hear of
Yeah.
businesses where partners are embezzling from someone, the other partner.
Mhm.
We hear all kinds of employee breakdowns, right? There's dark times and hard times in entrepreneurship, but My coaching, my encouragement is it's just for a minute. Get your mindset back into your greatness, that greatness mindset that believes in you and believes in what you're doing and believes in
Mhm.
what you're solving and that you're needed, and click back into that and move the train again, because we've all been there. We've
Yeah.
all had dark times and hard times, and where you just don't think another client's going to walk through the door, or where's the cash flow, like you're saying, hello, we have a cash flow issue, right? But that has been a long time coming, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
6 months ago, the sales system, it wasn't in place or isn't working, or maybe the person in charge of sales isn't being accountable, being effective, right?
Mhm.
So many of our employees can be busy, but are they being effective, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get this report, your cash flow is low, and you can go to a really smallness, scared, fear place. And I think
Yeah.
mindset is a really big part of entrepreneurship, and the ability to click back into the belief in yourself, dig deep, and move the train again.
Yeah, yeah, that's such good advice. And um, I would say almost now more than ever, because this is a challenging time for businesses. We're hearing this all the time. Uh, Obviously on the cash flow side, but as we're talking with businesses, it is a scary time out there for a lot of businesses. It's a scary time on the money side, but on the staffing side, on the customers, everything, inflation,
Yeah.
you're hearing all of it, and there's a couple things I think going back to that, like you said, that going back to your happy place in a way. The other thing that I always encourage people to do is get out and talk with other entrepreneurs, because
Yes.
nobody can know what you're going through quite like another entrepreneur. It's a fraternity that is facing the same challenges all the time, and don't when things are dark, don't hide in the basement. Get out there and talk with them, and that'll help a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Mentors, getting yourself a mentor, in the corporate space,
Mhm.
they talk a lot about getting a sponsor. And that is the core of what you're saying, having someone who's gone before you help you out. It's done in corporate, it's done in sports,
Mhm.
but let's normalize it in entrepreneurship, is coming up beside each other. And I think that's the back to relationships, back to relationships, whether that's someone in your own industry,
Mhm.
or just again someone that's a leader and successful ahead of you, that can just help you through that moment, because it is a moment,
Mhm.
although it sounds and it feels really long. It is just a moment, and we have to remember this is a hard moment. I'm going to get on the other side of this. And I've heard so many stories. I have a lot of my clients have um, 30 to 100 employees, and there's a lot of people problems, right, when you're
Yeah.
running a business with employees. And then the ones with the small teams, you only have 5 or 7, 10 employees. There's so much pressure on all 10 of those, because they're probably doing a lot, right?
Yeah.
And just people problems is a big deal in entrepreneurship. And a lot of I don't know about you, but I wasn't born knowing how to deal with people problems. Like you had, that's a
Yeah.
skill set. Again, everything is learned. So don't be
Yeah.
afraid if you're an entrepreneur who has maybe a skill set or two that you need to build. Go and find, whether it's a coach, it's a class, it's a book. Find now with YouTube. Oh my gosh, there's so many classes on every possible leadership, issue. But if
Yeah.
you're not a people person and you don't really know how to solve people problems, you should probably take a class or get some coaching, because
Yeah.
that's a skill set as a leader, as a business owner. You're going to have people problems. And it's important to know that you can learn skills that you don't have. Don't just stay
Yeah.
in the dark place of like, oh, my people hate me, or we have a horrible culture, or oh, 3 people just quit and now I only have 7. Oh, I'm going to go downhill. Like, again, we just go in story spiral, and it can
Yeah.
just get really scary. stop that. I wrote a book on the greatness game is my book on mindset, and it's important to stop that dark, those dark thoughts and shift over to your greatness. And there's a process to that, but just know that it's possible and that you can get back and move the train again.
I got to say, you guys should be looking up Dena. I feel like, it's funny. Sometimes I'm recording this and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing a podcast here, because it feels like I can tell how good a coach you are, because it feels like I've just had a coaching session. I felt like I should have stopped and taken notes partway through this. Um, I'll probably sit down and like re-listen to this whole thing and watch it after. But this was just an amazing conversation, Dena, and I want to make sure people know exactly how to get hold of you, because they should be, especially now, challenging times. They should be getting hold of you. How can they track you down?
Absolutely. So my website is denapatton.com. Super easy. DenaPatton.com. And all my services are on there. My book is on there. And really, my last really thought is keep believing in yourself and the business that you built. You built it for a reason. And sometimes we forget our purpose and our why. And coming back to that is activating. So I believe in entrepreneurship. We're all needed, and just keep going.
Yeah, I appreciate that wise words, and this is just a really great conversation, Dena. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Again, I'm Blaine Burch, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun. If you have lumpy cash flow, please come talk with us. We'll help you see it. We'll help you fix it. That's what we do at Dryrun. So thanks again, Dena. This was a great conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.